All right, so if you're a European business with an eye on going global, there's one massive question you've got to ask. Where do you find real growth? Well, today, we're going to break down the seriously compelling case for looking west, across the Atlantic to the United States. Okay, let's just get right into it. Every business leader is trying to solve this puzzle right now. I mean, the whole world feels kind of unpredictable, doesn't it? Making a huge bet on expanding somewhere new can feel like you're just rolling the dice. So the big question is, where do you place your chips for growth that's actually going to last? And this simple phrase right here, this is really the core of our entire explainer today. It's so simple, but it's powerful. It's not just about how big a market is or how many people live there. It's about finding an environment that is fundamentally designed, structurally and culturally, to welcome your investment and help it grow. That's the lens we're going to use to look at the US market. Now, before we jump into the proposed solution, we really need to get a handle on the problem. So what about the other major players out there on the world stage? The book material makes a pretty strong argument that many of the popular alternatives, well, they just come with an unacceptable amount of risk. So just take a look at this breakdown. It's pretty stark, isn't it? When you look at markets like China or Russia, the author points to a system where your business success can depend entirely on the political winds of the day. A huge concern is intellectual property. In China, for example, you're often required to have a joint venture, and that can put your most valuable assets, your IP, your secret sauce, at major risk, with basically no way to fight back in court. It's a completely different universe from the stable, predictable legal system you find in the US. And this idea extends to the BRICS nations as a whole. Yeah, on paper, the growth potential looks amazing, but the argument here is that all that potential comes with a giant warning label. Without the deep foundational checks and balances like you have in the US, the rug can be pulled right out from under a massive investment overnight because of a political shift or social conflict. It's a seriously high-stakes gamble. Okay, so if those other markets are so volatile, where do you go? This brings us to the proposed solution. The United States, and a system that the book argues is practically engineered for sustainable, long-term growth. Now, let's just address the elephant in the room, shall we? If you watch European news, you probably think America is just hopelessly divided and constantly on the verge of chaos. But the new book we're looking at argues that that whole narrative kind of misses the point of how the U.S. system is actually designed to function. And this is the counterintuitive part, that division you always hear about. It's a feature, not a bug. Power is deliberately split between these three branches. The whole idea is that no single person, not even the president, can just come in and completely change the rules of the game. This structure actually forces compromise, and that creates a bedrock of stability that is, frankly, gold for any business. And here's the part a lot of people overlook. The federal system is just one layer. The real action often happens at the state level. You've got 50 states that are constantly competing with each other to attract businesses, offering tax incentives, and business-friendly rules. So you're not just looking at one market, you're looking at 50 different markets all fighting for your investment. But you know, the differences aren't just in the laws and structures, they're in the culture. This book material points out a really fundamental difference in the whole mindset toward business and success between the US and Europe. Now, this quote is, a bit extreme, obviously, but it paints a very vivid picture. It's really all about the perception of wealth and success. Is it something to be celebrated, something to aspire to, or is it something to be viewed with suspicion and resentment? And this really boils it all down. The American ethos is all about encouraging you to stand out, to innovate, and to be rewarded for it. The author contrasts this with a European mindset that it says can sometimes prioritize sameness, which might accidentally stifle the kind of raw ambition that leads to explosive growth. And for any European manager who's dealt with what the author calls bureaucracy, this point is going to hit very close to home. Now, the US has its own red tape, for sure, but the relative speed and efficiency of getting things done can feel like a total revelation. It's like you're suddenly free to focus on making and selling your product instead of just navigating a maze of regulations all day. So you've got a stable system and a pro-growth culture. Great, but why is now the time to act? The argument is that we're in a perfect storm of global events that's making the US a more attractive safe harbor for investment than ever before. Let's just start with this one, staggering number. 0. Before the crisis in Ukraine, Germany, an absolute industrial powerhouse, had 0 terminals to import liquefied natural gas. 0. That single fact highlights a massive vulnerability in Europe's energy supply, which creates huge long-term risks around cost and stability for any business operating there. And you can see the result right here. This isn't just a theory. This is actual capital in motion.
I mean, look at the scale of these investments from global giants like Samsung and TSMC. They are making massive, multi-billion-dollar bets on American soil. That is a huge vote of confidence in the stability and future of the U.S. market. And that leads us to this final, crucial number, $5.1 trillion in foreign direct investment. But look closer, because here's the most important part. Over 60% of that total is from European businesses. The secret is already out. Your peers and competitors aren't just thinking about it, they are already here, they're invested, and they are growing.
So what's the key takeaway from all of this? Well, the author makes a really powerful case that all the recent shocks to the global system are redrawing the world's economic map. And in this new landscape, the U.S. offers a unique combination of stability, scale, and a pro-growth mindset. And that really leaves us with one final question for you to consider. As this new map shape, where do you plan for your company to be?